Beardy and the Beast Media Club.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is a placeholder intro song.
Welcome everybody to the Beardy and the Beast Summer of Sequels. In this series, we'll be revisiting the worlds already explored by watching sequels to the films previously discussed. Today we'll be having a full spoiler conversation regarding 2020's The Craft Legacy. We'll compel those spoilers to come out to be revealed to the world. If you have not yet listened to this discussion of the original film, The Craft, please consider checking it out. A full list of services we're available on can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. My name is Drew. As always, he's strict, but he means well. Devin?
Yep.
So Devin, did you find this film levitating, or should it have shapeshifted into something better?
Oh my god. I don't think it could have shapeshifted into something better.
Fully candid here, it was better than I thought it was going to be. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying I enjoyed it. I'm saying it's not rock bottom.
Well, yeah, but that's because our second episode ever was The Little Hours.
No, Little Hours is better than this film.
Yeah, it is.
You know what?
The Little Hours tried.
So, as is custom, I think we both know where we each stand on this.
Yep.
Is there anything about this film that you enjoyed?
Okay. I mean, I enjoyed seeing David Duchovny. I do enjoy him. Let's see. Yeah, this is hard. I'm sorry.
I thought.
How about you?
I thought the fashion was on point. I feel like the clothes that the kids were wearing and like the outcast group of girls, like it made sense. There was a uniqueness to it. And of course, the most important fact, in the frozen cafeteria scene, there just so happened to be a Discraft Ultra Star 175 gram Frisbee. That's
true. But then they stole it.
But as a disc enjoyer, I got to experience a legitimacy in that scene because they used a good quality disc.
This is like the exact opposite of any film we've seen with a motorcycle.
Yeah, what the listeners probably don't know is, sure, I ride motorbikes. We talk about that a lot because I'm super cool because I ride a motorbike. But I'm also super cool because I play Ultimate Frisbee and disc golf.
Oh. Yep, because nothing says cool like that.
Honestly, I just want to put this out there straight away. I want to be the one come to the initial conclusion as to why this film is tragic.
All right.
This film is like a first-year college student fanfic of the original The Craft.
Yes. It's that. Ooh, this was something I remember. Clearly, I can emulate it, and it's the epitome of what we've talked about in a lot of other, just the reboots, modern cinema.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't actually have any idea what the original was about. Like the most bizarre way. Like I didn't see anything in this film that really resembled the original. That goes from the characterization, whatever little bit of that's there, to the way that magic's done, to the consequences. Like if they didn't have Nancy, it was Nancy, right? At the end of the film. Yeah, if they didn't have Nancy at the end of the film, there would have literally been nothing.
Yeah, it would have been
remotely connected to it.
It would have been The Craft in name only.
Yeah.
This is the reason why I use the term fanfic, and I think it's a poignant observation simply because Lily feels like a self-insert.
Yes.
I am the pinnacle of this story. Everything is going to revolve around my self-insert character, and I'm going to insert myself into this world that is loosely related to something that I enjoyed earlier in life.
Hold on to that for half a second.
This isn't going to be like a 50 Shades Twilight thing, is it?
Just 1 second. I have something for this. Writer-director Zoe Lister-Jones based much of the film and its characters on her own adolescent experiences. When she was in the 7th grade, she shaved her head and wore men's leisure suits, so she was often misgendered. She also moved into her mother's boyfriend's house at a young age and had to adapt to living with young men she hadn't grown up with.
Okay, yeah, that just proves my point. Thank you.
You're welcome. So even without that obvious self-insert, yeah, it was that. No, that's it. It was the self-insert.
Well, that's not the only thing that ruined it. Like, I don't want to get caught up in the whole like feminism. Well, the feminism, anti-masculine kind of thing that they're portraying, because simply they did it terribly.
There is one part of the quote-unquote toxic masculinity that because I did the same thing as like very much not trying to note that stuff because I know that's going to be part of it. There was one part though that I feel I need to mention because it hurt me so much to my soul. So this was with Duchovny's character after the one guy,
Timmy.
Yeah, Timmy, committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all the guys and they're kind of in the circle and they're sharing it, and he's talking about weakness and strength, and I know what they were trying to do there.
Mm-hmm.
But he's specifically like, it wasn't weak when his son was crying. Specifically said that wasn't weak, and gave him a hug, and the look of disgust on Lily's face while that was happening.
Well, it's against the standard message, right? Like,
yeah,
allowing men to be able to express their emotions in a way is progressive objective.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of problems with that, but my problem with the whole villainizing masculinity in this is that it was a caricature and it was never confronted.
Right.
It was just like, these men are bad, and that was it.
Yeah.
It was pointing a finger, but given the fact that this entire film is supposed to be through like a feminist lens, should there not have been some form of confrontation or overcoming?
Yeah. Oh, like we've said many times before, as we kind of look at these supernatural films, Buffy did it better.
True.
Like, this is exactly what they did in Buffy. But, there was a confrontation. There was a struggle, something there. Something that this movie just lacked in its entirety.
Well, that's the thing. So the original Craft, I mean, I was quite hard on it, but I still enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reasons is...
You're not a 17-year-old girl.
No, it was character and plot driven.
Mm-hmm.
And by character, I mean all the characters involved. Whereas in this film, because it was such a self-insert and so guided towards Lily, the other girls in the coven could have easily not even been in it. Yeah. In this film at all. There's nothing integral about them being in the film, except for like, they discovered Lily.
There's so much around that. Like, I look at the characters and they were known in the first movie. They weren't like, I mean, yes, they were the weird outcasts, but they had drive. They had thoughts.
Well, they existed in the world. Like,
yeah.
Like there is even like the issues with like Rochelle and Nancy and how they related to like that high school environment, their relationships to the antagonist male characters.
Yeah. The transformation of Bonnie in the first movie too, right? Mm-hmm. Where she goes from being horribly scarred to becoming, the exact thing that she kind of hated about all of the other girls. I mean, that was honestly one of the strong points of that. Like, all of the girls had a reason for it. Even our antagonist, for lack of a better term, in Nancy, there was clear motivation why she was looking for that power, and they expressed that throughout the film. There was none of that here. It was just, yep, this is just a thing we do. This was, to go back to that self-insert, this was what every teenage girl thought the craft was when they all became Wiccans after watching the craft.
Though an entertaining observation, I don't know if I necessarily agree. But your very description of what some of the things that made the original craft good is the complete polar opposite in this, and what made this film not good. Coming right out of the gate, first thing I noticed was we have this strong and mature but still emotionally disheveled girl who, though a loner and scarred, is somehow strong already. And it's like, she didn't even get to grow to be that way in meeting her friends, these new people, or overcoming a challenge in the film itself. I don't actually think there was any evolution of her character throughout the entire film. And for the fact that she was truly the character that underpinned everything about this film, and it didn't go past an arm's reach from her, that means there's no evolution in the film at all.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, you had a very similar feeling around Nancy's character, or not Nancy, around Sarah's character in the craft, but there was a difference there. So, like, I mean, there was that bit of growth around Sarah, but you did talk about her being kind of static, and it was because she kind of, I believe we discussed, it's like she already had that bit of balance that she needed. It was the other characters around her where the growth was seen more so.
Yeah, I remember you convincing me to that point of view.
Yeah. Now, the big difference I see here is Sarah was troubled. So you had a girl who looked like in any other situation would have been the popular type girl. But she shut off, and throughout the film we get to see why she shut off, right? I mean, why she's moved here, because she was traumatized. She did try to commit suicide. She even did it the right way. So there was, in a way, a bit of mystery around Sarah in that regards, even though they explained exactly why. But, someone just casually seeing it, any of the students there would be going, it's like, why is she such a shut-in? She should be one of the popular kids. Whereas here it's like, yep, I'm the oddball. That's it. Just, it's like they tried too hard with Lily to make her the outcast, and no meaning behind it.
Well, that's the thing, like, the other girls in the coven, the fact that there was nothing that really changed about them, and there was no complexity to their characters at all, means there was no way that they were able to enhance Lily.
Yeah.
A static character with no growth.
Yeah, and a plot with no growth as an extension of that.
Like, if they made it about sisterhood, like if they took it a different way and they were more deeply bonded together against this warlock Duchovny, like, I would have been fine with that. At least there would have been some basic semblance of order to the plot.
That's actually one thing. That's one thing that I'll say as a good for the film. At least Duchovny being a warlock didn't come out of nowhere. Might not have been something that most people noticed, but you saw the titles of the books that he wrote, and they had that occult-ish feel to them. So it didn't. At least they had that. They did literally nothing with it, but they tried.
In the first third of the movie, though, like, I'm glad that he ended up being a villain, because otherwise in the first third of the movie, it's honestly this, like, stepdad that's trying, Like he's trying to make an effort. Is how in the first, and it just came off as Lily being kind of a jerk.
But they did that bait and switch in the craft. There was like the creepy guy who found the snake outside their house. Like they did a bait and switch like that where we thought he was going to be something big and he wasn't.
Oh no,
Like,
I'm not talking about the bait and switch. I'm glad there was the switch because otherwise it just comes off as Lily being an ass.
But she was.
Yeah, but at least there was a vibe, a feeling, a reason to be suspicious.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think I talked about this in was it Belle? I was just like, she could have been a better daughter.
Yes, I think that was Belle.
It's like her dad just like keeps trying.
Yep, that was Belle.
I'm glad it didn't go that way. I think it was better for the plot for Duchovny to be an evil warlock.
I mean, it's only because he likes red shoes that that they made him an evil warlock, right? Like, and it's. I see what you mean. It's one of those things. Like, okay, let's say we actually had a Nancy type character in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it also could have been an interesting bait and switch to go, oh yeah, no, this warlock is going to be the bad guy, and have him come and help against the Nancy. Like there's ways they could have gone with it, and
there's lots of choices that could have been a lot better in this film.
Yeah, it's funny because, like as you said, the bait and switch is like, no, I felt that no, he was trying. It was just different, and I understand why the filmmakers made this choice. I don't agree with it, but I understand it.
And that is 1 point for this over the little hours.
Yes.
I definitely enjoyed this film more than I should have. I thought it was funny bad.
Yes.
Just every time they made a choice and I just like start cackling to myself. I'm like, they actually put this in a film.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if this is trying to be this writer's great feminist piece, it missed completely and just came off as like wishy-washy drivel.
Yeah. This was it did have that funny bad. I give it that. It was very much, I got enjoyment out of the room because it was just that level of badness. Like, really, these are the choices you made. And I felt that through this. I think you might have gotten a little bit more enjoyment out of it, but I think it's because I mean we discussed this. I connected with the craft in a very different way than you did. And I think seeing all of the things that made the craft great, none of it being here, I expected nothing and I was still disappointed. Almost. Like, at least when we talk about, let's pick the Star Wars, if for some reason they were supposed to have some sequels, at the very least, they jangled the keys. It may have irritated a lot of people, but there's at least the smallest bit of attention to the source material. This, I didn't feel that. The closest I saw to the connection of the source material was two things. One, the book called The Craft, and the mentioning Manon once.
Oh, they did the girl levitating scene too?
Yes, but
they
it
just
had
did it poorly.
That's it. The few things that would, like, that was just poor. It's like all of these girls, they just had this power, whereas The Craft, it's a gradual buildup, and nothing to the level that's in this. Straight up stopping time, like the first time they ever try to do anything. They literally called it a hex on the guy they made very, very socially progressive.
Okay, so the lack of progression to the power rise
Yeah.
really bothered me. Because in the original craft, it was like spinning pencil. It was like sometimes a water main bursts. We're now changing our eye color and our hair color and board. And then when they finally go and they make the pact and awaken their powers, that's what, like 2/3 of the way through the movie almost.
Yeah.
So for them to just straight up be stopping time, like right out of the gate, it's like even Bella in Twilight like grew.
Yes. And think about that. We are saying that Twilight has more character progression
than the Craft Legacy.
and character growth.
So it just and the fact that one of the main driving factors of the plot of the first one was the consequences to the misuse of power.
Yes.
They alluded to it being a thing, but then all of a sudden it was actually Duchovny that killed Timmy.
Yeah.
It wasn't a consequence of the spells.
Even like before the reveal of it being Duchovny that killed Timmy. Oh, Timmy. Sorry.
That's where you go. You just made like a bad, outdated quote because this is not a. This movie is terrible.
So, even without that, because I noted the consequences thing. So, let's use them making Tamar his better self as a curse. I'm pointing that out again. They literally cursed him with this and said it themselves, which I just keep finding hilarious because it's exactly against the messages that they wanted to tell. Anyway, so let's compare that to Ulrich in the Craft. I think it was Ulrich, yeah. So, Sarah casts a love spell on him. And it's literally a progression. So at first it's kind of a, hey, yeah, I like you. And, goes straight up to, yeah, someone's going to have some non-consensual things happen. Okay, this is a clear consequence. It is derived directly from the spell that was cast. You see the same thing with Rachel and Nev Kimball. All of the consequences were directly from what they were looking for because they didn't form it. So I'm like, and again, gradual is an important thing compared to Timur, who immediately changes, no subtlety to it whatsoever. Then she becomes enamored with the cursed version of Timmy to the point that Timmy basically comes out to them. So she then casts a love spell on him. And I'm like, okay. And at this point here, I'm like, okay, sure. Where are the consequences? And then, of course, immediately we're told Timmy committed suicide. I'm like, they're going to try to say this is consequences, but it doesn't connect in any way to what's happened. And then, of course, as you said, they just wipe away the consequences.
To be fair, I didn't notice the hex thing. That makes it worse.
Yep.
However, there's the concept of, some people think there's a concept of how he feels inside is the true person that he is. So if the spell was used to bring that out, then that would make sense for at least his rapid change in mental state.
Yeah,
from the point of view of the filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that they made it a hex now bugs the crap out of me, because I heard about the Timmy character, but it wasn't expressed in the way that it was in the film. So in the film, he was already into dudes.
Yeah.
He had already hooked up with Isaac. The way that it was told to me is that in this film, this guy's mean, so they use a spell to turn him gay.
Yeah.
That's not what happened at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I can see how someone casually watching it might see it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
there's a reason why people always talk about like masculine lens this, feminine lens that. Every person, no matter what their persuasion is, what their political identity is, should always take the time to try to view something through the lens of the other.
Mhm.
Because the person on the other side is not some vague amorphous ball. There's a reason why they feel the way that they do, and whether or not you agree with them doesn't change how they feel.
Yeah.
Everybody can poke fun at everyone, but in the end, who's right and who's wrong?
Mm.
Anyways, that's a little rant. But the problem is they take away any meaning of him coming out to any degree multiple times.
Yes.
The fact that they made it a hex or a curse opposed to just calling it a spell,
Yeah.
or just witchcraft or something. And then once again, when it seemed to me they took a character that they originally envisioned as being gay, made him bi just so that Lily could have a handsome love interest.
Yeah.
In a film that is supposed to be quite obviously a feminist fanfic of the craft, which how can you even do when the craft was like feminist itself?
Yeah. So I think where people could say that the spell turned him gay is because, again, this movie, there's no sense of time.
Yeah.
I have no idea if that, like, for all I know, this happened in 3 days because they didn't give any indication of things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas at least in the craft, we had, again, not really a timeline, but you could kind of tell this was months that it was happening over. So I think that's part of it, because for all we know, he was made his cursed into being his best self. Then he slept with Isaiah, or like it's not clear, and so I can understand why people would think that it was the spell that did it. But I mean, that's just bad writing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna put this on a pedestal of great writing.
Because another way to read that is he wasn't bi. I like the idea that it's like he ended up being gay. And again, it just entered my mind that, and now, because he didn't seem to, like, there was that, I saw the romantic tension, but it felt very much just Lily.
Yeah, that's exactly how it felt.
So he wasn't bi, he was gay. They made him realize that he was gay, and then she casts another spell
that conflicts with the original.
To turn him bi.
At least, like, I'm going far out here. At least that would make the potential suicide make sense, because he is now cursed with this love spell to be something that he's not.
Yep. And
so that conflict of character could, especially juiced up on magic, could have led to like self-harm. So,
but it at least needed a scene or two before that happened.
I mean, we can reason it out, but that's not what the film showed.
Yeah.
I really got to stop making excuses for a bad film that I didn't really like at all. I'm just trying to make it all make sense.
Good luck. I have way too many notes and none of them make any sense.
The one thing that I wanted to get your perspective on here was how they used the occult.
Okay.
I got a feeling right out of the gate that there was not even a loose understanding of witchcraft.
So apparently they had witches consulting on this film. This did not. So it's interesting. I actually felt that the warlocks, with the little tiny bit of the occult stuff we got there, actually does kind of match the idea of alchemy and the way of bettering yourselves and kind of reforging yourselves. That is actually a part of the alchemical process. So that was kind of interesting. I felt like, so again, like the way they were casting the spells and such, it's close enough. the things that they were talking about putting in some of the spells made sense. But with that being said, I don't think they focused. It's like they took something from everywhere, and you even kind of saw it in the book, because like they're clearly doing some kind of Celtic things. We see the Celtic symbols, like with the moons, that type of thing, and the elements, and talking about the trinities, the mother, the maiden, the crone, all of these things, but they didn't focus it. So the craft focused on the elements. It was always about the four. Whereas here it's like, okay, they start off focusing on the four, and then everything they do afterwards is using the three of the divine feminine.
Okay.
It's kind of like, so you could have done this with three, right? You have someone represent the mother, the maiden, the crone, and just pull on a different power. Like, so it felt confused and jumbled to me in that regards. And
like a little buffet that they stole from everywhere, sort of thing.
Yeah, almost. Right. And again, like they're literally talking about the elements, and the book is talking about Egyptian gods while they're doing this. It's just kind of like, I don't know exactly where you're going with this. It's one of those things where it felt like it had the verisimilitude, like it heard of these things, didn't know how they fit together. And that's one of the things I kind of liked about the craft. It kept it loose, but still from like the occult standpoint. But it had its own rule system at the very least, and it stuck to that.
Yeah, consistency in system. We talk about this frequently.
Yeah. So again, it was all incantations, right? And the ritual circle. They weren't really worried about using the crystals and the candles. It wasn't a focus of how they were channeling their power. It was about the incantations. So here they kind of start like that. The first big use of power we see, that's what it is. And then they start going into, all these potion making aspects, and which wasn't in the original. So I didn't feel like there's just no continuity in how the powers were done, even between the films and even within the film.
Well, I don't mind if there's like a system jump between the two.
Yeah.
Like if there's a change of system, we have a different group of people who might be drawing powers in a different manner. But there was no consistency within Legacy.
Yeah.
And the bits that they stole from the original felt like,
I remember.
Yeah, it feels like a facade.
Yeah.
It honestly comes off like I saw these things on a website, and this is the stuff that I remember from the original film.
Yeah. So I think one of the big examples of that between the films that jumped out at me was I guess two things. They're very related, but present themselves in two different ways from it. All springs from one thing in the first film, the binding ritual. Okay. So once bound, you use your magic to bind. And the only way you can undo that is by using magic. So in this case here, all of the girls use their magic to bind themselves from using magic, and then come back like the X-Men.
The problems that I have with that go into how the story was told altogether.
Yes, but like the binding in particular jumped out at me because there's another kind of key point to this binding of the magic, and taking away all of the magic, the powers of some characters from the first movie who never really had magic naturally into her, like Sarah, somehow has a daughter with all of these inherited magics that have literally been stripped from her and shouldn't be there, and she wasn't a natural like that in the first place.
Oh wow, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, at the end of the first movie, she didn't have those powers, so why would Duchovny have any interest in her?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. For me, the plot consequences were they did a thing, and literally 30 seconds later, they undid the thing.
I mean, that was there in the plot writing, but just
Yeah.
in the back of my mind, it's like, this is bad because of that. And then bad because how could they undo it? Because they literally took away their powers to do it. Like, it's just, again, like the binding scene is very specifically, well, this was in the first film, and that was the only thought into it.
Yeah.
The other big skin suit type line in that was the "We're the weirdos," as their like rallying cry when they don't even fight. I can't call it a fight with Duchovny's character.
When hugging it out in Silent Hill Revelations.
Yep.
Yeah, when hugging it out in Silent Hill Revelations is more of a final combat scene than whatever the heck we just saw in the Craft Legacy.
Yeah.
It was literally like 3 people held up their hands. There's a little bit of glowy light, and then fire, 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 fire.
Yeah. And they did that, oh no, but we're the weirdos line. I'm like, you literally just said that line, not understanding what they were doing with it. in the first one. Like the first one, it was an empowering thing. Because they're like, oh, you gotta be careful out there at night. There could be weirdos. Like, yeah, we got this.
Yeah.
Is the feeling of that. Here it's like, no one was calling you weirdos. What are you trying to do here?
I can't. Like, anything that it tried to do that could have been any form of social commentary, that could have been any form of message or iconic character, was completely lost in poor writing.
I can only remember these characters because I literally have their names pulled up. I would have forgotten the main character's name like instantly. I did forget Timmy's name.
Like, going back to just the characters, it bugs me. So Tabby and Lords,
Yes.
they had the foundations of being interesting characters.
Yes, I agree.
They could have done great things with them, and especially with Lords, they could have done some duality stuff. They could have talked about, like, what is the feminine in relation to, like, this trans character.
Yes. She, in my mind, is actually probably the biggest wasted opportunity.
Oh, 100%.
So, again, like, I have to look at how, let's assume Lords was in the original craft instead. This would have been extremely interesting. So first of all, okay, cool. I accept that because the first one doesn't have any type of warlocks thing.
Yeah.
We had, what was that movie called?
Oh,
with
the dudes?
Yeah. Mailcraft. Covenant? I think it was called the Covenant.
How dare you? As someone who still thinks the original Craft was mid, you cannot call the Covenant Mailcraft. It does not deserve that title.
It's true. But it was what they were going for. And they sure as heck captured it better than this one did.
True. Speaking of great systems, that had a great magic systems.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Right. So what they would have done is Lords, I think they would have taken that character and probably would have replaced Bonnie. Right? It's that uncomfortable in the own body for different reason.
Yep.
But you then take the magic where we talk about the shape-shifting and making yourself better. So Bonnie, wish for those scars to go away and be that pretty person, which had the amazing consequence of her becoming a very ugly person. So you explore that by having Lords cast that similar type of spell. So all of a sudden you become, have the body that you believe you're supposed to have. And then you have that consequence of, okay, well, now the balance is out. So that masculinity starts coming in. That would have been a really interesting thing to explore. But this movie is allergic to interesting.
Just a sec, I'm writing that down. I think we found a title. I think Lords was definitely the biggest wasted opportunity there, especially like where this movie felt like it was trying to do some coming of age nonsense.
Mhm.
Again, failing miserably, but having that perspective and being able to show it through, gonna say it again, lens would have been very interesting and miles more interesting than what they did with Lily.
Oh yeah. And yeah, as I said before, I'm not too worried that Lily was the static character. That is fine. But if you're having that static character, you need to have the change in the others.
Yep.
I mean, we've watched plenty of movies where that's the case. I think Mononoke, I know that was a big discussion,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can have that, but be a vehicle for something somehow. Yeah, no, they did with Lords very much like I think they did with Rochelle in the first one, where we felt like it's like they kind of did it, but didn't explore quite as much as they could have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I remember us having that discussion. It's just like, do something, anything, and just the lack of consequences was. I think even if to go back to what you're asking about the occult, the idea of the balance and having your energies sorted is such a big thing of that in any occult system that I really know.
Mm-hmm.
That there's always the balance, be it good, evil, light, dark, male, feminine, and the consequences. It needs to be there, or none of it makes sense, even if on the surface it does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was one thing. So I think a clear example of the occult being confusing is like the idea of the so mote it be, blessed be, all of those things. Like those are, from what I've seen, generally tend to come from different
Okay.
sections. So like hearing both be used felt very weird to me.
This is kind of like, every late 20s yoga pants wearing white girl saying namaste.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds about right. It just wasn't there. And I just don't know what the movie just let me go. It's like, I don't even know what you were trying to do. There was at no point that I felt any tension. I was just going, oh, you guys are just terrible people.
Well, that being said, like they didn't even illustrate that well. Like I didn't feel like Lords or Tabby or Frankie were necessarily terrible people. I just felt like Lily was an asshole and literally everything is supposed to revolve around her.
So I think, so the reason why I'm going to say they're terrible people, and I think the reason that you feel that way comes down to, again, just the terrible writing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Talk about a hex.
yeah, again, literally talking about hexing. Like this is like their second spell they've ever cast.
I'm just saying.
Hex.
This writing didn't leave me charmed.
Yeah.
Hey.
Literally, the first spell they cast is a hex while they're breaking and entering. And their confrontation is literally just instant murder at the end. When I if I was looking at just the actions outside of the terrible writing, it's like, you are not good people. You are freezing time, stealing everyone's shit.
I'd be pissed off if they stole my Frisbee.
Right? And that's what I'm saying is like, I can pretty much guarantee that the writer wasn't seeing them as writing this as a bad thing. But it's very much similar to what they did with Captain Marvel. It's like, yeah, no, someone told you to smile, so you stole his bike and clothes. No, you're kind of the baddie. This might not have been what you intended, but this is what the actions show.
Baddie in the bad way, not in the like internet good way.
Yeah.
Well, I thought they were gonna at least try to go somewhere interesting with the B&E. Like, how do you know he's not home?
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be a similar thing. Like, she used to be her friend, or she was dating him, and he did something. I thought they were gonna go with that angle, but instead, no.
Yeah.
It's like they actively avoided good writing.
Yes.
I just realized another thing. Oh, the makeover scene.
Mm.
So in the makeover scene in the original craft, they were changing things that were intrinsically about them.
Yes.
hair color, eye color. In this one, it was, I put some pearls on your face.
Yes. And it was so sparkly.
At
Like, it was like Sabrina the Teenage Witch level of sparkly when they were casting magic.
least it made sense in Sabrina.
Glitter! Like, Kraft had none of that. Like, it was subtle, glamours. Like, it made sense.
So in the Covenant,
yes.
In the Covenant, I really liked when, like, the fact that there was an age limit to using the magic without consequences.
Yeah.
And then when you pass that limit, it would like hyper age you. But you could extend that by getting granted the power from another person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was such a cohesive system that they stuck through to the end. Not saying it's a good movie.
Yeah.
But something that it had that Craft Legacy didn't have was any form of consistency besides bad writing.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, that's where, again, like I say, the Covenant at least got things right. It's like there was a consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, honestly, yeah, it's actually really cool that there's that bit of time where you do things kind of consequence free to figure things out. Everyone needs to learn that. Everyone needs to make that bad spell.
Well, it's literally like an analogy for just growing up and aging.
Yeah.
The Covenant is just like Warlock Peter Pan.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I mean, you also saw that in the original Craft. Like, the consequences have always been like consequences and balance being a pivotal component to magic and spellcraft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm pretty much done.
Let's see. I like that they had ghosts all of a sudden. That kind of came from nowhere.
Are you sure that those girls weren't just hyper observant?
Oh, that is a good question. It is definitely a possibility.
They were, all three of them were River Tam the whole time.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Summer Glau.
I had a very much Captain Planet moment just before they killed Duchovny. There's very much a with your powers combined, which is interesting. So in the first Craft, just talking about the consistency of the magic system, I think this is probably the last thing I have. The powers that Sarah had were very subtle, but she had power on her own.
Yep.
This seemed to have none of that. Everyone, once they all met, then they had power on their own, where it's like instantly just massive telekinesis. They're throwing with the amount of people that Lily throws around.
The witchcraft was the friends we made along the way.
Yes. And even at the end, when like it made sense that Nancy was so powerful because she literally invoked a god.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that Sarah fought back basically by invoking the god as well, and kind of like almost a your powers combined type moment.
Yeah.
And that's important. Like it's a scaling thing. It's left no consequences in this film. I thought I had a point, but much like this movie, I didn't.
Hey.
And yeah.
I would say out of all the magic users in this film, there's probably only one that truly had any power.
Yeah. And then they killed it.
My conclusion is you probably shouldn't watch The Covenant, but if you had a choice between Craft Legacy and Covenant, you should watch The Covenant.
Yep.
But really, like, if there is a choice between those two, you probably can just watch the original The Craft, which is a decent movie.
Yep.
Much like the curse of any sequel, you always need to compare it in relationship to the first, which hurt it in this case. Not that it would have been that much better if it was a standalone, but craft and name only.
Yeah. And I think if it was a standalone, well, I don't think this would have gotten any type of traction at all if this was a standalone film. And at least in the standalone, I don't know, I might have been able to laugh at it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be going, but this makes no sense. But yeah, don't watch it. Or do, but make sure you have a nice bottle of whiskey with you because you're going to need it.
I mean, I thought it was funny.